Hello, dear teacher Diana. How are you doing? I hope this video finds you well. Well, the purpose of this video is to give you a feedback on the last two classes that I attended. Remember the first one back in April? We found that the students were working on producing content in a written form, putting into practice the self-care module proposed in the Way to Go book. Remember that they were supposed to make some posters. And from that exercise, you allow them to be the center of the learning process, as well as to reflect on how to have healthy habits in a creative way, while at the same time improving on their English skills. However, I pointed out the importance of sharing the objective at the beginning of the class and review it at the end, and as well, in some cases, foster compensation strategies to foster the use of English among the students. Also, that day we decided that for the next class I would attend, we will focus on formative assessment and objectives and sequence. And then I also propose to you have the focus area of compensation strategies. Okay, so let's begin with the first focus area of the last class that I attended. Formative assessment. So to point out, highlight a positive aspect here was that you systematically monitor their understanding of the topic by, remember, it was there is there, by making some specific questions to the students all the time. And when participating, you pointed out if they were making mistakes as a way to improve or correct their understanding. You had like 3 moments. First, you ask them to do a specific question, yes, and what is the meaning, and then they had to do some examples of there is, there are. Then in the second part, you ask the students to read a test, and in that case, you had 2 students to read them out loud and correct them through some specific points like pronunciation, fluency. And in the third, you ask the students to draw some sentences after reordering. Yes, it was reorder the sentences, and then the idea was to draw them. Yes, and because due to time you couldn't like finish completely this third one, but that was okay. Like throughout the whole activities proposed, you systematically monitor that they were understanding or not, and you pointed out the mistakes they were making to lead them to improve on their own process. However, next time you could also make some changes, like not only hetero evaluation approach, but promote maybe self-assessment, like leading them to understand by their own means how well is or not the exercise, or by peers, like promote peer assessment practices. Okay, now let's talk about the second focus area, that is objectives and sequence. You have established a really nice routine with them, which is the greeting, the date, you ask them how they're doing. Then you do this praying, which is really nice to start the class, and it's aligned actually with the suggested curriculum because they think of their own mental health at the end, like giving thank you at the beginning of the day. It's a very nice way to like start and like chill also for the class. And then third, you check the attendance list, and if you ask them if they have brought the materials, especially the dictionary, and you give them points to that, which is also important because since they don't have access to technology easily, well, the dictionary is a way for them to look up for words and expand their vocabulary autonomously. And then in the fourth part, you start the class, and in this case, you mention not the objective, but the activities. But this time, the activities that you announced were a little bit confusing. Like you're like, okay, we're at the end of the period. Maybe you're going to do a bingo, check the parts of the house, bonita, the map of the house. But like you kind of announce, and at the end, you didn't follow what you announced and you start doing it something else. It was a bit confusing, like what was really the activity about. So I suggest like set up an objective, a clear objective. At the beginning, you can have the Bloom taxonomy as a guide. Remember, there are like 6 steps of the thought process: remembering, analyzing, creating, evaluating. And from there, you can take a verb, which leads you to know what the purpose of the lesson is and the purpose of each activity if you want to make like singular objectives. And at the end, review it. Like try to take the last 2 minutes, the last minute to recapitulate the purpose of the class and why you did the activities that you made. Yes. And last but not least important, compensation strategies. You're using Spanish for to give them instructions. Try to have Spanish as a last resource, even though throughout the specific questions you make, you are promoting the use of the second language among students because they have to answer your questions in English, and then all days the activities, of course, have that aim. When you explain them the instructions, try to have a routine where you use some words that you always use so they can follow you or they can listen to you saying the instructions in English. Then use some compensation strategies, like for example, checking for understanding, having a student explaining their own words what they understood. Yes, but try to have Spanish as a last resource or as a second resource. Yes, I know in especially 7th graders are not going to understand you everything in English. But I've seen cases, I've seen cases, for example, the other day I went to Las Cruces. All the teachers only speak in English. And in Las Cruces is also a neighborhood where students struggle a lot economically, a lot of family issues, etc. But the teachers have been able to establish a routine with them where they pretty much use, like I would say 95% in English. They always, like at the beginning, start with greetings like you, and they make a routine. A routine is like a warm-up where they do a little game or a question, and then they have like a plan to guide the lesson, and then at the end they revise the objective of the class. And since the students are used to this, they are exposed to listening to the teacher in English. So maybe you could try to do it and see how it works. But you are definitely a great teacher. You connect with the students. They really like you having as a teacher. And that will be it. So thank you so much for receiving me in your classes. I will see you in the last meeting we have, that is next Thursday after the break. Okay, so I'll let you go now. Take care. Bye bye, Dana.